so among you. Whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave for all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. Here ends the reading from God's holy word.
Couple of thank yous. Thanks to Witt for getting up early on a Sunday morning to be our junior deacon this morning, and thanks to my husband for the flowers, which are in honor of our anniversary. We hit number 8 this week. Thanks, honey. So I'm doing something a little different today, and of course a lot of things are different today. You are in folding chairs, not pews, and you are having coffee during worship, not just after, which I personally think should be a permanent change. And my sermon today is different too. On this weekend, when we are asked to pause and to remember a man who gave his life in the pursuit of equality, today I'm sharing my sermon with him. So today you're going to hear not only my words, but the words of Martin Luther King. We know him, of course, as the face of the civil rights movement, as the man who led thousands in nonviolent protest, who courageously endured the humiliation of the Birmingham jail. We know him as the powerful orator who stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and spoke of his dream in words that have echoed through generations, words that we still desperately need to hear, as yesterday's confrontation in that same spot made clear. We know him as a martyr for justice and as an inspiration to millions. But first and foremost, Martin Luther King Jr. was a Christian, a pastor who knew his Bible through and through. He was a gifted theologian and a scholar of Scripture whose writings on Christianity and on the church continue to inspire. And he was an extraordinary preacher who did what we're supposed to do as preachers, which was to take the stories of Jesus and to breathe life in them so that they lived today. And that's what I want you to hear today, and you will in a few minutes. This week I was getting ready for SPF, our high school youth group, and every SPF meeting has a time for devotions, sometimes some scripture I want to share or a story to tell. And this week it seemed only fitting that I should share words from the Reverend King. So I listened to a bunch of audio clips, and I picked a 90-second clip to share with the kids, a few sentences on the meaning of true greatness, taken from a sermon that was preached in early 1968. And it was a good 90 seconds. But later that night, I sat down with my headphones on, and I listened to the whole sermon, the Drum Major Instinct, it's called. So today I want you to hear it, not all 38 minutes of it, but some of it. And it's a sermon that's based on the scripture story that Witt just read to you. And this is a story, I have to tell you, that I've preached on only once in all my years here. It's a story about 2 of Jesus' disciples, and frankly, they're behaving in a less than inspiring way in this story. They are 2 brothers, James and John, and they come to Jesus with what is a pretty obnoxious request. They figured out that Jesus really is the Messiah, and in their minds that means that he is on the way to becoming king of Israel, like really king, like beat back the Romans kind of king, like sitting on a throne of marble kind of king. So they want a piece of that. So they say to him, hey, when all this goes down and you're King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the 2 of us would like to be seated on your right hand and your left hand. In other words, we want to be at the top with you. And Jesus says to them this. He says, whoever wants to be great must be servant of all. Whoever wants to be great must be servant of all. Now, the one and only time I preached on this passage was very early on in my ministry here, and back then I was a very stern and judgmental preacher. I really was. I did a lot of scolding in my sermons Because, you see, I had just graduated from Yale Divinity School, and therefore I knew everything. And at age 26, I had experienced enough of life that I could comment on everyone else's. So when I preached on this passage, I spoke about how terrible James and John were for wanting to be special and important and in charge. And I said that we too were terrible, because we were just like that. It was a sermon designed to make everyone ponder all the ways in which they had disappointed God that week by being, as I said in my closing paragraph, more James than Jesus. What I want to share with you now is what Martin Luther King did with this story. It was pretty different. What he did was to say, you know, we've all got that James and John tendency to want power, so let's not condemn that drum major instinct, because it's human nature. Let's look instead at what Jesus does to transform it. Let's look at the transformative power of Christ. So I'm going to turn you over now to the words of the Reverend King.
This morning I would like to use as a subject from which to preach the drum major instinct. The drum major instinct. And our text for the morning is taken from a very, very familiar passage in the 10th chapter as recorded by St. Mark. Now, very quickly, we would automatically condemn James and John, and we would say they were selfish. Why would they make such a selfish request? But before we condemn them too quickly, let us look calmly and honestly at ourselves, and we will discover that we too have those same basic desires for recognition, for importance, that same desire for attention, that same desire to be first. Of course, the other disciples got mad with James and John, and you can understand why, but we must understand that we have some of the same James and John qualities. And that is deep down within all of us an instinct. It's a kind of drum major instinct, a desire to be out front, a desire to lead the parade, a desire to be first. It is something that runs the whole gamut of life. And so before we condemn them, let us see that we all have the drum major instinct. We all want to be important, to surpass others, to achieve distinction, to lead the parade. But let me rush on to my conclusion, because I want you to see what Jesus was really saying. What was the answer that Jesus gave these men? It's very interesting. One would have thought that Jesus would have condemned them. One would have thought that Jesus would have said, "You are out of your place. You are selfish. Why would you raise such a question?" That is what Jesus did. He did something altogether different. He said in substance, "Oh, I see. You want to be first? You want to be great? You want to be important? You want to be significant? my disciple you must be. He reordered priorities. And he said, yes, don't give up this instinct. It's a good instinct if you use it right. It's a good instinct if you don't distort it and pervert it. Don't give it up. Keep feeling the need for being important. Keep feeling the need for being first. But I want you to be first in love. I want you to be first in moral excellence. I want you to be first in generosity. That is what I want you to do. He transformed the situation by giving a new definition of greatness. And you know how he said it? He said, now, brethren, I can't give you greatness. And really, I can't make you first. This is what Jesus said to James and John. You must earn it. True greatness comes not by favoritism, but by fitness. And the right hand and the left are not mine to give. They belong to those who are prepared. And so Jesus gave us a new norm of greatness. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. And this morning, the thing that I like about it, by giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. Because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace. Soul generated by love. And you can be that servant.
So those last words are the words that I shared at SBF. Those last words are the words that kind of hung in the air. Everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And I said to the teens in the room that night that I thought they were great. Not because of the schools that they're getting into or the teams that they're on. Because I've seen them caring for kids in the slums of India, and I've seen them building homes in Appalachia, and I've seen them carrying plates of food to the hungry in Bridgeport, and I've watched them treat each other with kindness and welcome the stranger and respect each other. I've seen them be servants, I said, and that's what makes you great, I said. If you listen to the rest of the sermon sometime, and you should, you'll hear King speak with poignancy and with prophetic power about what happens when we lose sight of Christ's definition of greatness, what happens when that drum major instinct leads people to claim superiority over others. And it is, you'll find, a timeless sermon in its reminder of where we go wrong, and 50 years later, it still seems all too timely. But most of all, the sermon is timeless in its reminder of the transformative power of Christ to turn the world's definitions upside down and to turn our lives right side up, to take our very human yearning for greatness, our very human weakness, and to transform it into a desire to serve. Just a month ago, in the darkness of the sanctuary, we lit our candles on Christmas Eve, and we said these words. We said, "We can be the light of the world. We can be the city set on the hill for all to see." So today, on this Martin Luther King weekend, we remember the truth of those words, and we remember that we can be great, that everyone can be great because we can serve, This sermon was the last that Martin Luther King was to preach from the pulpit of Ebenezer Baptist Church before he was killed. And in the closing words of the sermon, he said this: "If any of you are around on the day when I have to meet my death, I want you to be able to say that I was a drum major, that I was a drum major for justice. I was a drum major for peace. I was a drum major for righteousness. Yes, Jesus," he said, "yes, I want to be on your right side. I want to be on your left side in love and truth and in commitment to others, so that we can make of this old world a new world. Therein lies greatness." Amen. We're going to share together in singing a song that was a central song of the movement that King led, and a song that still means a lot to a lot of people. The last time